Hi, this is Liana. I'm going to read a poem that I got published in the Pecan Grove Review from St. Mary's University. It's called My Mother's Archive. Under a small brass crucifix, a shadow box hangs on a little nail. Tarnished powder compact inside, decorated with golden peacocks. The beige powder is still in it, like a loved one in a locket. The box is lined with a white kerchief, tiny pink embroidered flowers with initials. There is a charm tied with a ribbon, older than the woman it belonged to, tenderly pinned by my mother's hand. A photograph of Maria de Jesus, great-grandmother, affixed inside. She will never age now, but she will also never smile, surrounded by her little things in this box. Perpetually turning above her picture, pages from a birth and death log of family members only she would ever have remembered.
Welcome to the Art Box, recorded in our beautiful Mesquite, Nevada, and sponsored by the Virgin Valley Artists Association. Our association provides creative opportunities for all ages. Get creative with us at the Mesquite Fine Arts Center, 15 West Mesquite Boulevard, or find us online at mesquitefineartscenter.com or on Facebook, The Art Box.
Welcome to the Art Box. Today is Sunday, April 14th. Good night. We're halfway through April already. I'll be missing Linda again today as she's still traveling with family. Today I'll be recording at the Do It Best Media Room at the Mesquite Works STEAM Center in Mesquite, Nevada. Today I will be interviewing Liana Morales. I met Liana at a Torrey House Press Writers Workshop almost 2 years ago in Sprindale, Utah, which is right outside of Zion National Park. It was an amazing few days under the tutelage of our instructor, Kase Johnstun, who has been a guest on the Art Box and also hosts his own podcast, Check Your Shelves. Welcome to our guest and friend, Liana Morales, who I met a couple years ago. Time flies. They've already had another writing workshop since ours.
I saw that.
Did you go to the last one?
No, I wasn't able to make it this time around, but it looked great. I have fond memories of our time that we spent at Voices for the West a couple of years ago now. So.
Yeah, I have a friend who went, and she was like, oh, thank you. I told her about it. Thank you. It was so great.
It was. That's good that she went. I really am glad that they had it another year. I hope they keep doing it just because it was just a great weekend of workshops and getting to meet people who are like-minded, creative people. And the events that they had also were really great that they held at the library. So I went to both of those on those 2 nights, and I got a lot out of it. Very creative people, very thought-provoking work and discussions. So
yeah, and it wasn't just writing. There was just creativity all around. It's so much fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was.
I'm battling. I think like everybody is. There's so much pollen in the air.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just miserable, and I feel like I rub my nose all the time. And everybody's, quit rubbing your nose, quit sneezing.
Well, I don't think you can help allergies, and they're pretty bad here too in New Mexico. The juniper in particular is just wreaking havoc on everybody.
Oh, well, that's good. So we love our little floor to wreak havoc on us. You want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Well, I grew up in El Paso, Texas. I knew I wanted to be a writer, but my career path has kind of diverted from that. But I do try and insert creative writing into everything that I do. I went to the University of Texas at El Paso for my bachelor's degree, and I got a degree in creative writing. And then I moved to San Antonio. I started working at St. Mary's University Law Library out of college, and that's when I worked towards my master's degree in international relations. And then I received a grant to attend library science program at the Texas Women's University. That rounds out my graduate school education. And as I was looking for a job, stumbled across a posting for the State Library of New Mexico, and so I applied there. And so I've spent a lot of time since then working in rural libraries. I was a rural bookmobile manager for a time, which is a mobile library, so to speak, that went out to rural areas in that state. And so it's been wonderful. I didn't know that my path would take me where I am now, but I do enjoy the work. I get inspired by my travels, and so I've been writing and keeping those stories that I've been wanting to craft in my mind. So I've gotten a lot of travel journaling done. I journal a lot. I try and do it as often as I can. I keep track of my books. I keep track of my movies that I watch, and I write reviews too, also just so that I can flex that, because I just really enjoy it. Even though I'm not published, I mean, I'm semi-published, it really isn't for that. I write because I really enjoy it.
You said this would sound cliche, but you came inspired to be a writer by your second grade teacher.
Yeah, that was pretty early on. I started reading pretty early and just really enjoyed spelling and all of those types of learning English, I guess. And so she just showed me this book and said, I think you need to start writing down your poetry in this book. And so I took it seriously, and I wanted to write poetry. I started off writing poetry. My final project to finish my bachelor's degree was a poetry collection. So I feel really inspired most of all by poetry. Since then, I guess it's when I just started on that path. So it's stayed with me for sure. She's long gone now, but Mrs. Luthrow, very integral in my growth as a writer. And many more teachers too. I have a lot of teachers to credit, to be honest.
I love it. It's interesting that you and I both had a choice at that writer's workshop. Our choices were poetry, fiction or nonfiction. Mm-hmm. And you and I both took fiction. I think I took fiction because that was the only opening.
No.
I'm not sure about yours.
Well, poetry was full, and Laura Tohei, I would have loved to have worked with her as she led those workshops for poetry. But I really enjoyed Kase Johnstun. I think that it was a very interesting and lively workshop with him. But yeah, I did want poetry too. However, I've been leaning more into fiction, and I got into the program on a scholarship with a chapter I wrote for a children's book that I had been developing. I felt like I would need to go that direction, and I was wanting to go in that direction. I'm glad that I was able to meet you and the other group of people that were there for fiction. It's just always good to talk to writers about their projects. I keep up with that as much as I can. I know I have personal friends or former college classmates that I still keep in touch with, and we still read each other's work. I think that workshopping and keeping that up on a regular basis helps to keep me accountable, and also helps me see what other work is out there, and they get to give me really valuable feedback. I've received a lot of really good feedback from keeping that up with the people the writing people in my life.
Recently, they started a writers group in our little town, and it seems like that's very well attended.
That's good. It is needed. I feel like writing groups, especially in libraries or just community groups that get together, is an important way to have a link to creativity and culture, especially the regional cultures in the areas. I mean, in different areas. Yeah, I really think that that's an important facet, whether or not you do it. I mean, it's all supposed to be, for me, a writing workshop is just to help improve my writing, but also to help expand my knowledge of what else is out there.
Yeah, and we had quite the group. I think that there was one student there, a lady who I think she had 900 and some pages written.
Yeah,
and I think Kase and a couple others were like, "What? No, you've got to cut." And then that got Morgan to talk about her book that had just been released, that she had to do some chopping as well.
Yes, and I'm really happy to have met Morgan. She's been just so, I mean, her new book is so good, and there have been other writers that have published in our group too that I was just really happy to hear about, like Stacie Denetosie. She published the Missing Morningstar, that book of short stories. And that was just so inspiring to hear, and I was so happy to hear about that accomplishment because she won Southwest Book of the Year with that one.
Oh, did she
And
really?
yes, she did. So I was just, there was high caliber talent in that group. And so it made me feel a little bit intimidated because I have so much on my plate. I feel like sometimes where I cannot focus on just being a writer. I would love to just define myself as that. I just still have all of these other commitments and programs that I'm trying to run. And I could go into that. I mean, I am developing a delivery program for the state library where we work with public libraries to deliver our resources out there. So we travel a lot. I've been traveling a lot more than normal, just trying to make connections with library directors. And since it's Poetry Month, we have a poetry collection that we've been delivering it's a coloring book that was developed by the Department of Cultural Affairs and the Poet Laureate of New Mexico, Lauren Camp. So it's all about Imagine Nature. That's the title of the coloring book. The illustrations are all New Mexico artists. And there's a couple of books that go with the collection, like a poetry anthology of New Mexico poets, a compilation of poetry that was recently published by two teenagers in Albuquerque about the South Valley of Albuquerque, New Mexico. So I was really happy to be able to deliver those and to support poetry in public libraries. I feel like I'm still connected with it, even though I'm not writing it. I feel like I'm helping to spread the word about poetry.
We're a small town of around 20,000 people. Maybe that's not a small town anymore, but we have the most fabulous library. And to me, it's amazing how it's evolved since I was a kid.
Yeah. I mean, libraries are very important, especially today, because you can exist there without having to pay anything. You can go and you can find a job. You can build your resume. You can start a small business. You can go there to study, or you can learn a new hobby or a new language. It's there for everyone. And I cannot state exactly how much of my heart goes out to libraries, and especially people who work in public libraries or working with the public, because it's important for them to have funding. It's important that they have advocates that will support reading and the freedom of reading. It's really, we're facing a lot of challenges in relation to books on the shelf and what needs to be on the shelf, what can't be on the shelf, etc. But we need to support libraries as much as we can because they're really these cultural centers, community centers that hold up the community. They hold us all up. I really am honored to have been a part of that project because of how much importance there is in supporting the library and helping library staff and many other things that the library will be there for the community for. We cannot stop pushing. So I guess I'm really passionate about it.
Yeah, and our library it's a community hub, but our library doesn't try to hog everything. Okay, our library, like where I'm broadcasting that from today, is our STEAM Center, which is STEM with an A for art and agriculture. They are very much a part of this. The library director, our local library, is part of the STEAM Center board. So they're reaching out all over the place.
That's great. There's programming outside of the walls of the library too. I mean, building community connections is also really important. And libraries don't just belong in this, they're not self-contained. They reach out. I think a lot more these days it's important for that impact to reach beyond their walls. And that was an important theme when I attended the Public Library Association conference in Columbus last week. I feel like there's so many passionate people all across the country who believe the same things that I do, want to support public libraries and the work that they do and the community connections that they make. I mean, it was a very good conference. I cannot speak high enough about how great of an opportunity it was to have gotten to go. I actually this is a little bit aside from writing in general, but I was able to attend on a scholarship from the National Library of Medicine because of a program that they are wanting to implement called the All of Us Research Program. Just a little tidbit about what that is they are trying to collect medical information from a wide variety, just a huge swath of people, 1 million people. And the reason why they have that as a goal is to help with medical research where it isn't just one size fits all medicine. The research will help improve the data as far as increasing information from people from diverse backgrounds, from all types of from all walks of life, from all types of habits that you have. And so they want to connect with libraries to help support that program, to find volunteers to be a part of it. And so I wrote in about what the state library could do and what I could help implement as far as telehealth and as far as supporting telemedicine, which is a trend that I've been seeing, and I think it's across the country, of seeing your doctor where you're at instead of going to the office. So you can see them from a library if you have like a privacy booth, and you can see them through teleconferencing app. And it's such a setback if you don't have a car and you can't go to the doctor's office, but you can walk to the library or you can use your internet from home. So anyway, before I go on too long about that, I met with a cohort of the other scholars that received the scholarship and attended some sessions about the program and got to know them really well. And it was just a great opportunity. And I really met so many great people who have public support in mind, public outreach in mind, and social programs as well.
I wouldn't be a bit surprised if there's not someone who listens who wants to contact you to talk about that.
Oh, they're welcome to. I would definitely. I have a lot to talk about it, so you can provide that info.
So, and I know, I wanted to talk about your writing, of course, but
Sure.
One of the things was the bookmobile, because for me, we couldn't walk to the library. We knew where the library was, but it just wasn't walkable. And we had the bookmobile, and it would come and it would be air conditioned, which was really good because none of us had air conditioning. So that was pretty nice in the summertime. What inspired the creation of the bookmobile program in rural New Mexico?
I know I did a lot of research about that because I was curious too. The bookmobile program began in 1957, so it's a really old program. However, based on my research, the country as a whole was launching similar programs. So I think across the grid, there were bookmobile programs that were starting at about that same time. When you get to the 80s, that number had dwindled. So a lot of bookmobiles ended up being administered by municipalities or a collection of counties. But the New Mexico State Library kept up the statewide bookmobile program. It started out with 6 different regional libraries that would dispatch the bookmobile out to rural areas. And by the time I started working there, the bookmobile had 3 offices, and I was at the one in Tucumcari. I think that there are challenges to running the program. It is very expensive. It's probably one of the most expensive programs in the Department of Cultural Affairs because of the implementation, like keeping up the vehicles with repairs, but the communities support the collections. So the counties that the bookmobile visits are who pays for the collection on the bookmobiles themselves. There is community support year after year. There's federal support year after year, and that's why it's still around. And I hope that the support will continue, especially because we don't want to stop serving those areas. They're still isolated. They're still, they're in periods of either economic decline, or just struggling in general economically. And there aren't any types of resources like the bookmobile that go out there. There is a lot of support from development to reach out to communities that are bookmobile stops to see if there is a focal point to create a library. And so that has happened over the years as development works towards creating libraries in communities. Then eventually the bookmobile will taper off. So that's kind of the plan that's been in place for a while with it.
So what other
Right.
services, how have you adapted the other services that the library offers to these remote communities?
That's a good question. So the pandemic helped us redirect our focus and forced us to redirect our focus because we were grounded March 2020 when it happened. And so since we were based on, face-to-face outreach, driving to these communities, and we couldn't anymore, we had to find out alternatives for the first time, really, how to reach library patrons without going there. And so that's when I worked towards launching ebooks and providing access to people who had internet to our ebook program for free. So we worked with some vendors to launch that, and I'm really happy to say that Hoopla has been a great asset to the bookmobiles because it gets a lot of usage. And oftentimes when patrons can't find their books in physical form, we can check Hoopla, and Hoopla will sometimes have what they're looking for. So that's one way. Another way we've been able to serve the public through the bookmobiles is with resources for, say, agricultural resources for people, or legal resources. I mean, making numbers available, websites available, senior center information available from the vehicle or online. It's had to adapt that way. And also the Department of Cultural Affairs was very proactive during the pandemic in other ways to help the museums too, because since museums had to close down, there wasn't a way to get people into the building. So DCA got together with their different museums and created activity kits that would go out, and those were distributed on the bookmobile. So activity kits related to archaeology or science or any other type of museum that they have. There was Farm and Ranch Museum that did a kit on weaving, and the Museum of International Fine Arts also did one on printmaking. And so those types of things, those activities were implemented on the bookmobile to be delivered out to patrons who would normally not be able to travel to Albuquerque or Santa Fe to visit those museums, or Las Cruces. That was a really important advancement, I want to say, because it's still in use now. We still make these activity kits on a regular basis and distribute them that way out to people who want something to do and want something to learn. It was a very hard time that I remember thinking about, everybody was in transition and kids had to suddenly be at home, away from school, learning at home. And there are so many issues with doing that in rural areas where a lot of areas don't have access to internet. People don't have internet in their homes. The broadband program has really helped with expanding internet access to those areas as well. And that was also really pushed forward during the pandemic. So hopefully we can have more connectivity in those areas so that they can reach out to what we have available and access the same resources they would have in Santa Fe, but where they are. Another piece of progress, I guess, and as part of the big picture.
Yeah, and using the technology. Does the bookmobile have internet? The bookmobile shows up for however many hours is it there that may be the only connectivity that some people have until the next week or the next visit?
That's the idea. They were outfitted with satellites so that they could receive internet signal. They also have Wi-Fi hotspots. I was trying to push for Wi-Fi hotspots to be checked out, but working that out with our program schedule, it's different than working it out with a brick and mortar library, so it wasn't able to be properly launched, I don't think. But in any case, there is internet on the bookmobile. And the staff on the bookmobiles do need the internet to check in and check out books. When I first started, we were functioning completely offline. And not just that, but there was not a public access catalog. So, when you're hearkening back to your days requesting books on the bookmobile, that's how people were doing it still in 2016. And I think that the online catalog launched in 2018. And so since then, we've been working to show patrons how easy it is to place holds online, where they don't have to, they can look at anything in our catalog and place holds at any hour of the day. So that's been great. And that has really worked out for us in a good way. So it's just, always going to be a challenge, but there are solutions to these. They just, need some time.
So I'm sure when the bookmobile pulls into the little town, there's a lot of smiles on faces.
Oh, yeah. And that was one of my favorite things. I haven't been in the bookmobile program since 2022, but I have fond memories of showing up at a stop and people gathering to catch up with each other because it had been a month since they'd seen each other. They'd talk about what books they read. Sometimes they'd trade the books they read. They would browse on our shelves. I don't know if you know what it looks like. I think I might have shown you a picture, but I had been driving a 2009 Bluebird bus that's outfitted with shelving to hold about 3,000 books. So when you board the bus, you can see every book in our collection on board, separated by genre. We had nonfiction, we had genre fiction and children's books and just all kinds of freebies. And it was just a delight, really, to see, especially kids. We would stop at schools, and during summer reading, when there wasn't school in session, but people still brought their families, or it was right before summer break where the kids would come on board super excited. I'll never forget that. It was very special to me. I liked talking with the parents about, their school curriculums and how we can get the books that they were currently on topics that they were studying and things like that, and just doing different programs for them. It was really special to me.
Back to your writing. We asked you to describe your artistic style. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Well, sure, because I guess, we started off talking about poetry, and that's kind of where I got my start as far as exploring what kind of writing there is out there. When I got to college, I started writing fiction and just short stories, and then I kind of branched into screenwriting recently. So in addition to Utah, I kind of started just like this push to get myself out there. So that's why I ended up going to Utah. I started literally applying myself. And so I applied to the 2022 New Voices New Mexico program, which was sponsored by the New Mexico Film Office and Stowe Story Labs, which is in Vermont. And I got a fellowship. So that was really exciting. I felt like there was promise with the screenwriting, that I actually could picture myself writing more. And being a part of that program also was I felt so lucky, because the other people who got into the program were just exceedingly talented people, very gracious and helpful, and just such good people were a part of that program. And the projects, all of them blew me away. I couldn't even pick my favorite. And not just that, but I got a lot of good feedback from them about my project. So, what I wrote for that, what I was supposed to be writing, I should say, and that I actually did finish a draft of, is a teen comedy based on growing up in El Paso in the early 2000s. And I co-wrote that with one of my high school friends. And we've had a lot of fun with it. And I'm just really proud of how much it has changed me and made me realize that I could have been doing this all along. And it's, I'm not regretting that I didn't do it earlier. I'm just happy that I was able to find out about it and to have so much fun with it. So back to the whole thing about eclectic, I've just been dabbling. So poetry, genre fiction, and screenwriting really have been the gamut of what I've been working on creatively.
Do you use Screenwriter Pro?
I don't. I actually use Writer Duet. It's been, I don't know, I've tried other ones like Celtex is another software program for for screenwriting. But Writer Duet is good because since I have a co-writer, we can update our screenplay simultaneously and work together on it, even though she lives so far away from me. So that's pretty much why I went with Writer Duet, because I think it's meant for co-writers or people who are working on a team developing a film. Yeah, that's pretty much been the experience with Joanna and I. She and I would meet usually on Sundays to just catch up with each other and to develop the story and, just or edit or revise or get it ready to enter into contests. So we actually did enter a contest with it. It's the El Paso Plaza Classic Film Festival screenwriting contest that got us into the top 10 last year. So that was pretty fun and unexpected. I was not thinking that it would happen for us. I mean, not that I didn't have faith in our screenplay, but I don't know. I don't think about those things for myself, but it's nice to know that when I want to enter these things and when my work is entered into a bigger, for bigger audiences, that there's good things about it.
Yeah. It's nice to be recognized, even though you're still doing it for yourself.
Yeah, I mean, eventually I would love to have it be real and for us to watch it on screen, because I think it's a great story and it was really fun to write, but that's just not how it works. And I'm still really proud of it and of Joanna and I for completing it. And so it was a really good project, but I have started on other things because I still have a whole chest of ideas, really. Notebooks of writing. I can't figure out which one to write next. I have so many projects in the queue.
And it is funny. I empathize with that because I try to do too many things. But you've got all these things. But I found it interesting. You said keeping an organized project notebook helps, and it's my artist friends around here, I think organized is never part of their vocabulary.
Well, it's hard. When I actually said that, I mean, I remember writing that and then actually looking at what I have. It's not that organized. I have notebooks everywhere, to be honest. And I think I put that because I'm trying to organize it digitally so that I could get rid of all my notebooks. I mean, sorry to all of the history of my writing, but I just need to purge some stuff from my collection because it's just getting too much. And so I feel like what I want to do is just go through these notebooks and transcribe what I want into this online notebook that I've created so that I could filter them out into actual projects, because they're just little tidbits and blurbs and little writings of poetry or quotes that I just have. I'm a collector, I guess you could say.
Yeah, because you have to write, if you hear it and you love it or you think it up, you got to write it down somewhere. But now where does it go? And how do you ever find it again? Oh, and wait till you're over 70 years old, and then it's even harder.
I have a lifetime of it. I know. I talk about this with my mom, who also likes to write, and she wants to write a memoir. And she's got definitely a collection of stories enough for that are very funny and just very serious too. And it's just about her upbringing in El Paso. So I want to support her with that. And I've been trying to help her organize her notes. But the way I do it is I have a OneNote. It's the Microsoft OneNote program. And
I was always afraid of that.
Oh, it's intimidating at first. But if you want a book recommendation, Building a Second Brain is what I have used to help me organize all of the thoughts that I want to keep together without having to commit it to my own memory, because my own memory is so limited. So it's basically just using a notebook program to help you build a second brain, technically.
So that's a book, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, that'll be another time my wife will say, "What is this from Amazon that's coming?" Was it another suggestion or a new
Yeah.
podcast guest? And I'm
I
sorry.
can't tell you. Yeah, it's just. But that's just what I would recommend, because I mean, the way I've set up my OneNote is like I have a whole tab for fiction and screenwriting, the titles or the working titles that I want to use, and then whatever I've been gleaning from my physical notebooks, just putting them into this organized tab on OneNote. So that's my method. And then when I actually get going, usually I'll write on Word, which I mean that's so old fashioned, but Word, I know it. I know that word processor the best. So yeah, that's what I use.
Yeah, me too. We always ask about AI, and I know Linda would make funny faces at me anytime I would want to ask a question about AI. What are you bringing that up for? But I found out over the last couple months, I don't have to ask it anymore. Every one of our guests brings up AI. Now,
Wow.
you brought it up that you use it as a creative writing tool. I like that you said you use it for character name suggestions. Talk about using AI.
Sure. I really enjoy using ChatGPT. I haven't really tried I mean, I kind of did. If we want to go, like, before I get into writing, I mean, AI in general has evolved. So now you can generate images based on what you describe to it. And that has been really interesting. So it doesn't exactly know things yet. Like Canva, if you're familiar with Canva, the graphic design website, it has like a magic designer where you can enter a prompt of what you want something to look like, and it'll give it to you, or it'll generate something to show you, and you can approve it or not approve it. And so I've asked it things like a roadrunner reading a book in front of his little house, and it'll do it. And I mean, some of it is not quite, it just, there's something wrong with it. I guess the uncanny valley type stuff, that it's just not, because it's not produced by a human brain. So ChatGPT is kind of similar with writing, where I could tell if I asked it to write a story, it can do it, but it's not a good story. It's just this. What I learned about it, if you asked it a prompt, it doesn't generate something creatively. It generates something that is a guess, like it's a response to it, based on the information it has. It doesn't use creativity. It uses what it's already learned to generate something that is by chance, or like that is the most chances that it will be this answer it answers. So say you want it to write me a cover letter for this job. You can feed it the job description. It won't have the same sincerity. So I don't trust it for writing anything. I trust it for helping me generate my own ideas, for supporting the ideas that I already have. And so, like, say one time I asked it to write a screenplay about a vampire who has a film collection, like a film archiving collection. And it wrote a really short screenplay about a vampire who does that, and an archivist who wants to get to his collection, but the vampire kills the archivist. And it was really interesting, because I just thought, wow, it really does know. It did have tidbits of like film archiving, like that whole world in general. So there were some elements that I thought, oh wow, this could actually be used or to develop more, but it wasn't complete. And I mean, it does hallucinate, so it'll give you fake answers too. You can't trust it to give you the truth unless they're trying to get it to be truthful. But like, say if you want it to write a research paper with works cited, the works cited will probably be made up. So, it's been interesting. I have had fun giving it prompts and figuring out different things. I've had it definitely help me with character names, but not just that, but help me to keep my timelines in my story in order. And, in general, just give me some examples of like if I give it a scene, and then I would ask it like what kinds of things would help increase the suspense, or what can happen unexpectedly that changes the trajectory of the main character, and it'll help me. So it's been great. I would definitely recommend it for that, but not for writing your school papers. Don't do that, kids.
Yeah. But, everything you're describing, I'm trying to think of the way I use it now here and there. We're inputting our creativity because we're creatively thinking how we can use AI. And we can help it. We can allow it to help us.
Yes.
So, but it's still using our creativity.
It is. It's a tool. It isn't a replacement for anything. I mean, it could be a replacement for other things. I hate that it's a replacement for customer service, but that's just the way of the world, and that's just how it's going.
Yeah, that's the way of the world. It is.
And I feel like I don't want to get into the entanglements that are existing with intellectual property and who owns certain things, but it's going to get very tangled in the future, I think, because of that. Like, there are authors out there who are co-writing children's books with AI and publishing them with artificially created illustrations in their children's books, and I think that that's really skirting a line. I don't know what that is all about, but getting a reader to explain certain things is great. I love that idea. I think that that's a good way to share information and narrate it out to others. So
then as I was going to bed last night, I was dead tired, but my brain was going around, could we have an entire podcast with a fake guest?
Wow. I would tune in. I really would. You should, and then they could be your co-host, like your AI co-host.
Yeah, when Linda's not here, I'll replace her.
Not to replace Linda. No.
She would replace me totally, and then I would never have a job. So
no, I have really enjoyed this conversation, Steve. So thank you. It's been very insightful. I'm glad that we were able to chat, and I really enjoy your input and your curiosity about my background. I just wanted to mention one thing, because what you said about being a kid and having that memory, I just wanted to go back to that really quick. I was going to say, going back to bookmobiles, that a lot of the people that I used to see on the bookmobile had been going since it had opened in 1956, and they had taken their children there, or their children were now grown up, living in the same area, remembering exactly coming to the bookmobile when they were kids. So that is just a great example of how important it is to have programs like that can last a long time, because it stays with you. And especially if you're a kid, it has a lasting impact. They never forget it. And I have met everybody that I have met that has that remembers going to bookmobiles as a child, remember it distinctly. And so that has been also something that I will take with me as part of my experience with the bookmobile program. And I appreciate that you brought that up.
Yeah, and it's nice to know, you can feel in your heart that you've touched so many lives, and you will be in those memories.
Thank you. That means a lot. I have a lot of patrons in mind too. I mean, that I got to know, and that I was so happy to be able to get their materials for them. I also won't forget them.
So I have one last question.
Sure.
What's inspired you this week?
That's a great question. The time that I wrote that out and sent it to you was long ago, but I remember I had written about going to the history library at the Fray Angelico, the History Museum. And I guess this past week, what has inspired me is my friendships. I have really good friends in my life, really generous and kind and thoughtful friends that I am so lucky to have. I feel so blessed that they are in my life. So that has been inspiring. They really push me to see my goals, see what my goals really are, and to go for them. They motivate me, they keep me on top of things, and they don't have to. I know that they care. So I'm just really grateful for the friends that I have here in Santa Fe. I feel just a part of something when I'm with them, and I get to enjoy my life a lot more because they're in it. So I think that's what I am grateful for and what's motivated me.
Well, Liana, that's a great answer. And thank you very much for spending part of your Sunday with me.
Well, I appreciate it, Steve. Thank you again so much.
Liana, thank you. Go have a fun day.
I will. Okay, thank you.
All right,
you too.
bye.
All right, bye-bye.
I see it in your eyes. You've been listening to lies. You
Broadcasting from the Mesquite Works Steam Center in the scenic Mojave Desert, the Artbox sponsors thank you for listening. You can find us on Spotify and Amazon Music. Please subscribe so you don't miss an episode. We welcome all comments. You can email us at artboxvv@gmail.com. The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of its hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect those of the Virgin Valley Artists Association.